Hi, my name's Eric. I'll be reading you selections from today's Cape Cod Times. Today's date is Monday, June 29th of 2026. And we'll start with the weather, as we always do. And of course, this reading is produced by the Audible Local Ledger, a reading service exclusively for people who are blind or print disabled. And with the weather across the Cape and Islands today, partly sunny and pleasant, high of 77 in the afternoon and a low of 64 under a moonlit sky tonight. Tuesday, tomorrow, humid with gusty thunderstorms in the afternoon expected, high of 82 and a low of 67. On Wednesday, humid again, afternoon thunderstorms possible, high of 85, a low of 68. Thursday looks to be a very, very warm 94, 95 degree day, extremely humid, and a low of 70 in the overnight. So on Thursday, make sure that if you've been just using windows and fans, you may want to turn on the AC on Thursday because it will be uncomfortable. On Friday, humid with showers around in the afternoon, a high of 85 and a low of 67. And so we have a humid week ahead, a very humid week, an uncomfortable week. Probably a good time to get those ACs going again. The sun will rise at 5:10 a.m. It'll set at 8:20 p.m. We'll have 15 hours and 10 minutes of daylight. The moon will rise at 8:37 p.m. and set at 4:21 a.m. Heading to the front of the paper where the lottery results used to be kept, they don't print them anymore because the Cape Cod Times goes to press too early. But we did have somebody ask for them, and if you ask for them, we will try to give them to you. So we go to masslottery.com for the latest numbers game results. And with the numbers game results for Sunday, June 28th, in the midday, the numbers were 3, 0, 4, 4. Again, yesterday's numbers game midday winning numbers 3, 0, 4, 4. In the evening last night of Sunday, June 28th, the winning numbers were 7, 2, 6, 1. Again, last night's evening winning numbers 7, 2, 6, 1. Mass Cash was drawn last night as well. The winning numbers for Sunday, June 28th, in the midday, 4, 9, 13, 29, and 33. Again, the midday winning numbers of Mass Cash yesterday, 4, 9, 13, 29, and 33. And in the evening last night for Mass Cash, the numbers were 2, 3, 13, 15, and 25. Again, last night's evening winning numbers of Mass Cash, 2, 3, 13, 15, and 25. Good luck to all who play, and remember us if you win. From the front page of today's Cape Cod Times, the headline reads, First Customers Enter New Woods Hole Ferry Terminal by Susan Vaughn. The new Woods Hole Ferry Terminal drew positive reviews from its first customers when it opened to the public on Thursday morning, June 25th, ending a 21-month construction project that was completed on time and under budget, according to the agency. Officials of the Woods Hole, Martha's Vineyard, and Nantucket Steamship Authority, led by General Manager Alex Kriska, greeted the travelers headed for Martha's Vineyard and offered them coffee and pastries. Kriska said people were impressed and appreciative of the new facility. First-time visitor to Woods Hole, David Dolphus of St. Louis, Missouri, was among them. It's beautiful, aesthetically pleasing, said Dolphus, as he looked around the large open lobby with windows looking out to the boats. He commented on the unusual slatted wood seating and said he was grateful for those with backrests as he waited for the incoming ferry with his tour group. Several tour groups, families, workers, and frequent users walked through the new building on Thursday morning. Alicia Raftery of Knoxville, Tennessee, called the new terminal super nice. She and her husband, Jason Kint, were taking their 3-year-old son on his first boat ride. Kimberly Burns, who grew up in Woods Hole and now lives in Hyannis, was taking a day trip to the vineyard. She liked the new seating and the $11 senior rate, but said she still preferred the original terminal that was directly accessible to the ferries. Perhaps no one was more excited about the opening than Mark Amundsen, the authority's chief operating manager who led the construction of the 5,418 square foot geothermal building. "I'm excited," Amundsen said of the completion, noting the terminal planning began in 2013. He led the Times on a behind-the-scenes tour of the pipes and tanks, explaining how the 39 underground geothermal wells feed the heating and cooling systems of the terminal and the adjacent new utility building. The geothermal system meets the state administration's net zero goal for emissions that started in 2015, he said, and the goal later became law in 2021. Amundsen also was excited to show the terminal manager's working view of the ships from the large office windows. At the front office, he pointed out how the concrete walls covered by a granite veneer make the building flood-proof to a 17-foot elevation. The opening of this terminal marks a tremendous milestone in the decade-long project to totally reimagine and rebuild the Woods Hole terminal, Kriska said in a press release from the authority. The terminal encountered many obstacles and delays during the planning and construction. The terminal construction contract for $32 million was awarded in March of 2024 to Colantonio, Inc. of Holliston, and the final cost rose to nearly $37 million, but it was still under the $39 million estimate, Amundsen said at a recent Port Council meeting. Amundsen said that the terminal's soft opening in the middle of the week was deliberate to get the public, the staff, and buses that drop people off used to the new configuration of the new terminal layout and to get ready for the upcoming busy summer season. The ticket agents and staff have been undergoing training and preparations since June 16th. The next phase of the terminal will be the addition of solar panels in the employee parking lot, on the terminal and the utility building roofs, and over the new bike parking lot, the officials said. A schematic drawing in the lobby showed plans for landscaping with trees and plants and several small parks around the terminal building. A date for a formal opening hasn't been set, Amundsen said. The Woods Hole terminal is the authority's busiest port, handling 2.4 million passengers and 550,000 vehicles of all sizes in 2025. The other local story on the front page of today's Cape Cod Times of June 29th, mistrial declared in Gomes trial in fatal Falmouth stabbing by Zane Razak in Barnstable. The murder trial of a Taunton man accused of helping to plan a fatal attack on a Falmouth teen ended in a mistrial at Barnstable Superior Court on Friday afternoon, according to Cape and Islands District Attorney Robert Gallibois. Armando Gomes was accused in connection with the June 10, 2023 stabbing death of Miltier Hendricks, who's 19, during a confrontation at the Gosnold Grove apartment complex in Falmouth. Jury deliberations began Friday morning. Jurors could choose between first-degree murder, which carries a sentence of life without parole, or second-degree murder, which carries a life sentence with a chance for parole after 15 years. Authorities say the fight grew out of an ongoing dispute after Hendricks insulted Gomes. Gomes was 24 when he was arrested in 2023. Closing arguments, which were delivered Thursday, centered on whether Gomes shared intent to kill and whether the evidence supported a conviction under Massachusetts' joint venture theory. Both the prosecution and defense said Gomes's friend, Adrian Black, inflicted the two fatal stab wounds. Cape and Islands Assistant District Attorney Thomas Flanagan, Jr. argued that Gomes is legally responsible under the Massachusetts joint venture theory, which allows defendants to be convicted of murder even if they didn't deliver the fatal blow, so long as prosecutors prove beyond a reasonable doubt that they knowingly took part in the crime and shared the intent to commit it. But Gomes's attorney, James Murphy, said that Gomes only wanted to fight and never shared what he called Black's intent to kill. Flanagan said that Gomes helped plan a coordinated attack that led to Hendricks's death. He pointed to surveillance video from the Gosnold Grove complex that he said captures Gomes and 4 others arriving and moving toward the parking lot before the fight. The group exited the car, yelling, screaming, arms up, very amped up, very aggressive voices yelling, said Flanagan, describing Gomes as this defendant leading the way. The way that this happened speaks to the plan, and it speaks to the organized fashion in which this happened. He led the way. He drove the group down, said Flanagan. He also argued that the video shows Gomes and others distracting Hendricks during the fight, allowing Black to move in and deliver the fatal stab wounds while his attention was split. Flanagan also urged jurors to consider phone records and text messages exchanged before the confrontation, arguing they showed the attack was planned rather than random. He said repeated calls between Gomes and Black and the sharing of Hendricks's Snapchat contact show coordination before the group drove to Gosnold Grove. Murphy told jurors Gomes didn't share any intent to kill Hendricks and was involved only in a confrontation that escalated into a chaotic fight. He argued that Black acted on his own when he stabbed Hendricks and that Gomes cannot be held responsible for something he did not plan or intend. I mean, clearly at some point Black decided to stab Miltier Hendricks and a life was taken far too early, but that is not a decision that Armando Gomes made, and it's not a decision that he shared the intent on, said Murphy. Murphy urged jurors to focus on whether the state had proven a shared intent to kill beyond a reasonable doubt, arguing much of its case was built on inference from conduct and communications rather than direct evidence of an agreement to murder. He said the prosecution was interpreting ambiguous messages as proof of murderous intent, asking the jury to carefully review text messages between Gomes and Black. I'm going to suggest to you, you won't see a single word in there about killing anybody or stabbing anybody, said Murphy. Murphy also said the key footage depicted a brief chaotic fight, rather than evidence of planning or coordination, and urged the jury to carefully scrutinize several key witnesses who testified under a grant of immunity. Black was found guilty of first-degree murder and was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole in April. Moving on to the Cape and Islands section, keeping it local as we do here at the Ledger, Barnstable Park and Ride lot near capacity with some misuse and some tickets by Susan Vaughn in West Barnstable. The Barnstable Park and Ride commuter lot on Route 132 is popular and well used by Cape residents and visitors because it's free and convenient just off Route 6. But some people misuse it, according to regular users and officials. The lot is intended for carpooling and people who take public buses from there to Boston or Logan Airport, according to a sign at the lot. The state DOT owns and operates the 365-space lot that's usually 91% filled on average, and often at capacity in the last few years, according to 30 years of data from the Cape Cod Commission. The lot has drawn attention lately with the announcement from the state that an expansion is in the works. The lot is the primary park and ride option on Cape Cod, where buses such as Plymouth and Brockton and Peter Pan bus lines pick up people going to Boston. What are the rules for the parking lot? Well, the lot has a 21-day limit, and campers and box trucks are prohibited under Mass DOT rules. The state has removed campers and illegal vehicles. Brian LaCroix, Barnstable Parking Program Manager and Community Transportation Coordinator, said in a phone interview on June 25th. Abandoned vehicles have also been found at the lot and been towed, he said. Some Cape residents who go away in the winter park their cars at the lot for the entire season, a handful of bus riders told the Times during a visit to the lot May 27th. LaCroix confirmed that assertion. The town parking resource officers, 2 in winter, 5 in summer, who aren't police officers, monitor the lot regularly and have found those long-term parking violators, and they've given them tickets, LaCroix said. Mass DOT is then informed and takes care of towing the vehicles. Barnstable police can also request tows if they see fit, he said. How often the lot is checked varies based on operational needs, staffing, enforcement priorities, and public inquiries, LaCroix said. A walk and a drive through the lot's parking lanes on June 25th showed some empty spaces and no visible parking tickets. The resource officers found one violator during that week, which was parked illegally at an electrical vehicle recharge station, and they ticketed the vehicle, LaCroix said. He said the lot fills up more in the winter when more residents leave Cape Cod, but he expects it to become busier again after July 4th when more summer visitors arrive. Some visitors use the lot when they're going on ferries to Nantucket or leaving from Hyannis, which might explain several out-of-state cars parked in the lot on June 25th. They park there, they take a taxi back to the ferry, LaCroix said. The parking officers who work from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. daily during the summer to monitor about 30 parking areas throughout the town of Barnstable, LaCroix said, including the beaches. They handle emergency calls as well, such as vehicles obstructing traffic. The parking officers have no set schedule. They check the park and ride lot when time allows, but the lot's not a priority, he said. Calls from citizens get priority, he said. David Nergararian of Eastham, who uses the park and ride lot regularly year-round, said at the lot on May 28th that the most difficult time of year to find a parking space is winter, when unplowed snow eliminates many spaces. Most of the time he gets a space at the lot, he said, but occasionally he has to drive to Bourne Park and Ride commuter lot on the other side of the Sagamore Bridge because Barnstable is full. Cheryl Smith of Cotuit, who parks at the lot when she takes trips, said on May 28th that she often worried that parking spots won't be available, so she tries to get there extra early and wait for the bus. MassDOT is planning to alleviate issues such as the difficulty in finding an open parking space by nearly doubling the size of the lot to 639 parking spaces. The state has set aside nearly $9.3 million for the job, and it's obtained extra land to expand north and west of the current lot. The plans include new sidewalks throughout all parking islands, additional pedestrian curb ramps, and accessible parking spaces distributed across the site. 4 new bus shelters are planned with expanded passenger capacity and improved lighting on the lot. Existing electric vehicle charging stations will be relocated and integrated into the new site layout. New signs for on-ramp access to Route 6 and a dedicated turn area before the highway entrance are planned, and new bicycle storage is planned as well. A design for the new lot has been approved and bidding for the project is to begin in the summer, with construction scheduled to begin in 2027, MassDOT Senior Project Manager Ariel Lamoth said in a phone interview. The other story in the Cape and Islands section of today's Cape Cod Times, it's June 29th. Marty, the Stop and Shop robot, may soon have a shark named after it, by Seth Jacobson. Stop and Shop knows who the Atlantic White Shark Conservancy should name the first tagged shark of the season after, Marty. If you're a Stop and Shop customer, you definitely know Marty, the in-store robot that patrols the aisles at store locations all over the Bay State. And in Marty's honor, the Shark Conservancy is kicking off the 2026 White Shark Research Season with a search to find a shark to name Marty, according to a release from both groups. The first new shark identified this season will be named after the robot. In turn, Stop and Shop will be selling limited edition White Shark Marty plush toys at all locations. From the sales, 20% will be donated to the Shark Conservancy. This partnership is a fun and engaging way to connect people to white shark research happening right off our coast, Cynthia Wygren, co-founder and CEO of the AWSC, said in a press release. AWSC works to advance the conservation of sharks through science, education, and outreach. By helping people recognize the vital role sharks play in healthy ocean ecosystems, we strive to foster informed coexistence and inspire appreciation for these remarkable animals. Shark reports on the Sharktivity app, run by the AWSC, show 6 sharks or evidence of sharks spotted by humans from June 16th to 21st. That's not unusual. Shark sightings around Cape Cod increase as the weather and water gets warmer, peaking in the fall. Sharktivity app reports are generated by researchers, safety officials, and regular citizens with access to the app. The AWSC encourages all beachgoers across Cape Cod and the islands to be shark smart this summer by downloading the Sharktivity app and following recommended safety practices, including paying attention to flags and signs on the beach, staying close to the shore when in the ocean, and avoiding areas in the water where seals are present, a press release said. Keeping it local, we'll move on to the sports page with the Cape Cod Baseball League Saturday Roundup. Cotuit and Brewster finish in a 4-all tie by Adam Kirkchin. The Cotuit Kettleers and Brewster Whitecaps couldn't settle their game Saturday in 9 innings, took extra innings, and each team scored once, but the game was called a 4-4 tie after 10 innings. Cotuit went to 4-6-2, Brewster moved to 6-5-1. Each team scored 1 run in the extra frame after a 3-3 tie in 9 innings. In the top of the 10th, Landon Beaver out of Alabama Birmingham singled in a run to give the Kettleers a 4-3 lead. The bottom of the 10th inning, Edward Yaman IV out of Louisiana State doubled to left field to help tie the score at 4. For Brewster, a Jay Abernathy, Tennessee alum, bunt brought home the game's first run in the bottom of the 3rd inning. Dane Harvey out of Ohio State added a sacrifice fly for the second run of the inning. Harvey singled to help tie the score at 3 in the bottom of the 5th. Will Plattner of Alabama doubled to score Cotuit's first run in the top of the 4th inning. Later in the inning, Jesse DiMaggio of Westmont doubled in 2 more runs to give the Kettleers a 3-2 lead. For Cotuit, Aiden Aguayo of UCLA went 2 for 4. In other Cape Cod League baseball games, it was the Yarmouth-Dennis Red Sox 5, the Wareham Gatemen 0. The Red Sox, who were 11-1, rolled to another win as they pitched well and also found runs where they could. The Harwich Mariners 5, Bourne Braves 2. The Mariners, who are 8-4, topped the Braves, who are 5-4-3, as Harwich has the second most wins in the league. It was the Chatham Anglers 4, the Hyannis Harbor Hawks 2 in 6 innings. The Anglers, 6-5-1, beat the Harbor Hawks, who are 4-8, in a game that was cut short due to fog. It was the Falmouth Commodores 8, the Orleans Firebirds 2, a complete game win for the Commodores, 6-5-1 over the Firebirds, who are 3-9. And that is your Cape Cod Baseball League Roundup for this weekend. We've completed all the local news, except for obituaries, which we'll get to at the halfway point in our reading. So we will now move on to the national and regional news. Violence flares up between Iran and the U.S. Attacks are reported in Kuwait and Bahrain by Tala Ramadan, Iman Abu Hasira, and Phil Stewart of Reuters. Iran launched missiles and drones on U.S. military sites in Kuwait and Bahrain early on June 28th, shortly after President Donald Trump threatened to wipe out the Iranian leadership if they didn't stick to the interim agreement to end their war. Israel said on June 28th that it struck Iran-backed armed Hezbollah militants in Lebanon on June 27th, just a day after it agreed to the latest ceasefire deal with Lebanon to calm fighting that Iran says must end if the wider agreement is to stick. The U.S. military said earlier it had struck Iran again, hours after a tanker was hit in the Strait of Hormuz, the world's most important energy shipping route, which Tehran has largely closed for most of the conflict. There may come a point when we're no longer able to be reasonable and will be forced to militarily complete the job that we very successfully started, Trump said on social media. If that happens, the Islamic Republic of Iran will no longer exist! ! He added. The 14-point interim peace accord was meant to halt the fighting, which the U.S. and Israel started February 28th, and reopen the strait, while talks proceeded on issues such as Iran's nuclear program. One round of mediated talks, led by Vice President J.D. Vance and Iran's parliamentary speaker Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf, was recently held in Switzerland. Washington waived sanctions on Tehran, but fighting has since resumed and intensified. About an hour after Trump's post, Kuwait's army said its air defenses were responding to missile and drone attacks, while Bahrain said sirens had sounded there. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps said in a statement its Navy and Air Forces had launched missile and drone operations targeting U.S. military sites in Kuwait and Bahrain. The guards said U.S. strikes had violated the ceasefire and will result in the complete halt of all diplomatic processes, state-run Press TV said. The RGC Navy Command said American bases in the region will experience hell in the coming days. A U.S. official confirming the attacks on U.S. facilities told Reuters there were no reported U.S. casualties or major damage to U.S. sites in the Middle East, but the situation was still unfolding. Hours later, alarms sounded for a second time in Bahrain, where authorities said an Iranian attack damaged a residential building in Muharraq province, with no casualties reported. Bahrain urged the UN Security Council to hold an urgent session to hold Iran accountable. The Kuwaiti army said it had intercepted 2 ballistic missiles with no damage or casualties. U.S. Central Command said earlier that its forces had carried out fresh strikes after a Panama-flagged tanker was attacked by an Iranian drone on June 27th. Iran was given a chance to honor the ceasefire agreement, but elected not to, Central Command said in a statement. U.S. strikes were in direct response to continued Iranian aggression against commercial shipping and targeted Iranian military surveillance, communications, air defense, drone storage, and mine-laying facilities, it said. Explosions were heard in Sirik in southern Iran, Iranian state broadcaster IRIB said without providing details. The guards said America's blind shots at Sirik will not resolve our dominance over the Strait of Hormuz, but our shots at violators will remind the rest of the vessels of the clear passage route. The tanker attack June 27th in the Strait followed one on a cargo ship on June 25th that triggered the latest escalation. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said responsibility for returning maritime traffic in the Strait to pre-war levels lay solely with Tehran and urged others not to intervene in Iran's administration of the Strait. Washington has been promoting a southern lane along the coast of Oman, while Tehran, which ultimately aims to charge fees for use of the Strait, wants ships to use a northern route through its waters and under its control. Hundreds of ships stranded in the Strait, which carried 1/5 of global oil and LNG supplies before the conflict, including tankers laden with oil, began leaving over the past 2 weeks, sending oil prices back close to pre-war levels. Even as attacks continued early June 28th, CMA CGM's Galapagos container ship exited the Strait in what the shipping giant called an important milestone in a regional context that remains complex and requires constant vigilance. In Lebanon, Israel said on June 28th it had killed Hezbollah militants armed with rocket-propelled grenades and struck a rocket launcher in the Nabatea area. There was no immediate response from Hezbollah. Israel, which is not a party to the U.S.-Iran deal, and Lebanon have repeatedly agreed to U.S.-brokered ceasefires, the latest on June 26th. But these have had only limited effect, with Israel insisting it will not withdraw from Lebanese territory it seized, and Hezbollah repeatedly rejecting calls to give up its arms as long as Israeli troops remain in place. U.S. ally Israel invaded in March after Hezbollah attacked it in support of Iran. Araghchi said Israel's withdrawal and a halt to its strikes in Lebanon were mandated by the interim deal with the U.S., and it was Washington's responsibility to stop its operations. A regional story next. West Nile virus detected in Massachusetts mosquitoes, by Bailey Allen of the USA Today Network. West Nile virus has been found in mosquitoes in Massachusetts for the first time this season, local health officials said. The virus, which can cause sickness in humans, was detected in a mosquito sample collected Tuesday, June 16th, in the town of Clarksburg in Berkshire County, according to the Mass Department of Public Health, or the DPH. With warmer weather and summer officially beginning this week, it's the time of year when we typically begin detecting West Nile virus in mosquito populations, said Public Health Commissioner Dr. Robbie Goldstein. These findings serve as an important reminder that people should take steps to protect themselves from mosquito bites. The virus is typically passed to humans through the bite of an infected mosquito, the DPH said. There were 9 human cases of West Nile virus in Massachusetts in 2025. No human or animal cases of the virus have been reported so far this season. West Nile virus is a mosquito-borne illness that can be spread to humans and cause diseases such as encephalitis and meningitis, according to the Mass Department of Public Health. In the Bay State, 131 people were reportedly infected with West Nile virus between 2014 and 2023. 8 of those people died, the department said. However, about 80% of people infected with West Nile virus don't develop any symptoms, the CDC said. About 1 in 5 people infected develop a fever with symptoms such as a headache, body aches, GI issues, joint pains, or a rash, according to the CDC. Additionally, about 1 in 150 people who are infected develop a severe illness affecting the central nervous system. West Nile virus can infect people of all ages, though people over the age of 50 are at higher risk for serious disease, according to the Mass DPH. The virus can be diagnosed based on one's symptoms, history of possible exposure to infected mosquitoes, and testing of their blood or spinal fluid, the CDC said. The CDC said that while no specific treatment for West Nile virus exists, the symptoms can be managed as the body fights it off. The Mass Department of Public Health recommends applying insect repellent when outdoors to reduce the risk of mosquito bites, which can transmit West Nile virus. It's best to use repellent with an EPA-registered ingredient: DEET, permethrin, picaridin, oil of lemon eucalyptus, or PMD, according to the instructions on the product label, the department said. However, DEET should not be used on babies under 2 months, and it should be used in concentrations of 30% or less on older children, the department said. Oil of lemon eucalyptus should not be used on children under 3. Those going outdoors can also wear long sleeves, long pants, and socks to reduce the risk of getting bitten. The DPH said people should avoid spending extended periods of time outside from dusk to dawn when mosquitoes are most active. The department also recommends getting rid of any standing water, where mosquitoes tend to lay their eggs. Residents should empty and clean bird baths, unused flower pots, kiddie pools, water troughs, and rain gutters that may be collecting rainwater. It's also important for residents to make sure their window and door screens fit properly and don't have holes, the DPH said. Residents can check mass.gov/mosquito-borne-diseases to monitor West Nile virus activity in Massachusetts. We're a couple of minutes by the midway point in our reading, and regular listeners, I'm sure, are aware it's at this stage that we move to a different kind of local news, which are the death notices, obituaries, and memorials listed in that day's Cape Cod Times. And in the Times of June 29th, a Monday, the first obituary is of Dawson L. Farber III, who passed peacefully after a brief illness and will be remembered fondly for his commitment to his family and his generosity with many local charities. Born in 1947 in Towson, Maryland, Dawson was blessed with 4 younger brothers and 1 sister. It was an idyllic childhood full of sibling fun, annual summers on Cape Cod, and family dogs that added to the joyful chaos. He attended the Gilman School in Baltimore and then Vermont Academy in Saxtons River, Vermont. Got a bachelor's degree from Clark University in Worcester. While a student at Clark, he was smitten with Lynn Howison, his fraternity sorority sweetheart, and they soon were inseparable on and off campus. Dawson was a generous benefactor to local charities and nonprofits, including the Center for Coastal Studies and the Cape Cod Commercial Fishermen's Alliance. In addition, he served on several boards, putting his business acumen and professional relationships to work for great causes. He is survived by many family and friends. Services will be held privately, and a celebration of life will be scheduled later this summer. In lieu of flowers, any donations may be made in his memory to the Center for Coastal Studies, the Cape Cod Commercial Fishermen's Alliance, and the American Cancer Society. The next obituaries of Frederick LaSelva of Forestdale. Frederick R. LaSelva Jr. passed on June 24th after a lengthy illness. He was the husband of Sylvia LaSilva, the love of his life, married for 38 years. Fred, to everyone who loved him, was looking forward to celebrating his 79th birthday with his much-loved family on August 11th. Together, Fred and Sylvia created a blended family, from Fred's first marriage to Donna Stewart, his sons Michael and his wife Shelley, Matthew and wife Nisa, and Sylvia's daughter Ellen and her husband. Throughout his life, Fred was a successful business leader, entrepreneur, and consultant. He ran Mutual Stationery and created Penfields, which began as a select fine pen retail business, evolving to include a nationally run Boston-based retail business center for the hospitality industry. Throughout Fred's life, he offered his time and expertise to a variety of nonprofit organizations. A memorial wake will be held at Nickerson-Bourne Funeral Home, located at 154 Mass Route 6A in Sandwich, Massachusetts, July 13th, from 3 to 7 p.m. A funeral mass will be held at Corpus Christi Parish, located at 324 Quaker Meeting House Road in East Sandwich on July 14th at 11 a.m. In lieu of flowers, a donation or contribution to your preferred charity in Fred's name are welcomed and appreciated. The next obituary is of Frank J. Harrison of Sandwich, who passed peacefully on Thursday, June 18th, surrounded by the love of his family. Frank held his family close to his heart. He's survived by his wife Carrie and many family and friends. He was born May 15th, 1956 in Hillsdale, New Jersey, and was the beloved son of the late Anthony and Mildred Harrison. His family moved to Cape Cod in his sophomore year. He graduated from Sandwich High School in 1974, then attended the University of Rochester, where he earned a bachelor's in economics and statistics and a master's degree in accounting and finance. In 1984, Frank established his own certified public accounting firm in Sandwich and built a thriving practice and a community of long-term clients, many of whom became lifelong friends along the way. He lived his life with open arms and a heart full of joy. His infectious laugh stays with us, and his spirit lives on. A memorial mass will be celebrated on Tuesday, July 7th at 10:30 a.m. at Christ the King Church, 5 Job's Fishing Road in Mashpee. Family and friends are invited to join the Harrison family at the Ridge Club in Sandwich following the Mass for a celebration of Frank's life. In lieu of flowers, donations in Frank's memory may be made to Massachusetts General Hospital, research in CAR-T CAR-T therapy for glioblastoma at Make a Gift to CAR-T Therapy for Glioblastoma. The next obituary is of Todd James Palmatier of Sandwich, who at the age of 73 passed on June 21st. He was born October 1st, 1952, and grew up in Congers, New York, where he excelled in both academics and athletics at Clarkstown High School, graduating in the top 10 in his class and winning many awards for his performance in baseball, football, and wrestling. He was highly recruited as a scholar athlete by many universities and attended Colgate University, where he studied geology and played football. Todd was hardworking, caring, intelligent, strong yet sensitive, and incredibly humble throughout all his life's achievements. We will miss him dearly, but we're grateful for the time shared with him and feel comforted that his legacy will live on through all who knew him. A celebration of life will be organized at a later date. In lieu of flowers, please consider making a donation to the National Parks Foundation in Todd's name in support of the many national parks he was so fond of, especially Sequoia. The next obituary is of Bonnie Snow. Bonnie McGregor Snow, 88 years old, of Orleans, Massachusetts, passed away peacefully at her home on her beloved Town Cove on June 19th, surrounded by family and friends. Born in 1937, she spent her childhood moving throughout Cape Cod alongside her mother, who worked as a live-in nurse for local families. She attended the Northfield School for Girls near Greenfield, Massachusetts, and later graduated from the nursing program at Boston Children's Hospital as an RN. After marrying Stanley "Stan" Snow of Orleans, she devoted herself to raising their 3 children, while also caring for family members, neighbors, and friends whenever they needed a helping hand. Her kindness, generosity, and quiet dedication to others left a lasting impression on everyone fortunate enough to know her. A lifelong member of the Church of the Holy Spirit, where she was the first baby baptized, she remained devoted to the parish through decades of volunteer service. At home, she found joy in tending her gardens, listening to records, and singing songs from her favorite musicals with her grandchildren. In recent years, one of her greatest pleasures was becoming a great-grandmother. She's survived by her husband of 67 years, Stan Snow, and many family and friends. The family invites you to an informal gathering at the Town Cove Tap House on July 7th from 10 till noon. In lieu of flowers, friends are invited to make a donation in Bonnie's honor to the Orleans Historical Society, the Visiting Nurse Association of Cape Cod Hospice Care, and the Church of the Holy Spirit. The next obituary is of Philip N. Desmarais of Provincetown, who at age 63 passed unexpectedly on Sunday, June 7th. He died drinking his morning coffee on McMillan Pier, watching the sunrise over Provincetown. Phil was born October 2, 1962 in Nashua, New Hampshire, and was a graduate of Bishop Garrison High School and Hesser College. He went on to have an endless array of adventures. In New Hampshire, he was the owner-operator of a record and CD store. He handled property management duties for Red Oak Apartments and was a licensed broker at Fidelity Investments. Leaving New Hampshire, he soon found his way to his beloved Provincetown. There he worked initially as a restaurant host and barker and raved especially about his experience at Bayside Betsy's. He also drove a cab for several years. Phil was vigorously outgoing, hard to ignore, a free spirit, and a reliable, even enthusiastic employee, whatever the job of the moment might be. He touched many lives, especially during his years in Provincetown. A funeral mass will be held Wednesday, July 8th at 11 a.m. at St. Peter the Apostle Church, 11 Prince Street in Provincetown. A private committal service will be held in Nashua, New Hampshire. For those interested in making a donation in Phil's memory, the family suggests the Soup Kitchen in Provincetown, which is SKIP, and that can be done at www.skipfood.org. The next obituary is of Ronald A. Hansen, Sr., beloved husband of Marie P. Hansen. Ron was known for his boundless generosity, humor, and kindness. He was a husband, father, grandfather, friend, co-worker, and retired 50-year member of Sheet Metal Workers Local 17. Later, Ron built successful businesses as a home builder and home inspector. Throughout his life, Ron volunteered at several organizations, including the Falmouth Service Center and the Falmouth Senior Center. Ron and Marie had their first date on Valentine's Day, 1958, and it marked the beginning of a loving and beautiful 67-year life together. He loved the Falmouth waterfront, spent countless hours at the beach gazing at Nantucket Sound or reflecting by the harbor. Very proud of his Boston and Danish roots, most proud of his 5 grandchildren that brought him endless joy. A visitation will be held at Chapman Funerals and Cremations at 475 Main Street in Falmouth on Wednesday, July 1st from 11 a.m. until time of service at 3 p.m. The burial is private. In lieu of flowers, any donations may be made to the Falmouth Service Center charity at 611 Gifford Street, Falmouth, Mass. 02540. The next obituaries of Robert Francis Leahy of Sandwich and Vero Beach, Florida, who passed peacefully December 2nd of 2025. He was born March 11th, 1935 in Utica, New York. He commanded the Tufts Naval Drill Team, participating in parades and televised events. A graduate of Tufts U with a degree in civil engineering, he was commissioned a U.S. Navy ensign in 1958. He served active and in reserve until 1979. Thank you, Mr. Leahy, for your service. After his active service, he returned to work for Avco in early aerospace development. Robert is survived by Ursula, his wife of 68 years, as well as many family and friends. Music and theater were lifelong passions for Robert. He and Ursula sang with the Cape Cod Chorale and the Mostly Dickens Carolers. He also designed lighting for theater productions at Tufts University in Panama and for the Barnstable Comedy Club. A funeral mass will be held at 11 a.m. Tuesday, June 30th, tomorrow, at Corpus Christi Church in East Sandwich, Massachusetts. It'll be followed by burial at the Mass National Cemetery in Bourne. May his memory bring comfort to all who knew him. And the final obituary in today's Cape Cod Times, there were quite a few, way more than usual on a Monday, is of Beverly Ruth Weddergreen Nilt, who passed peacefully June 19th at the age of 88 after a brief illness. Beverly was the heart of her family, the creator of cherished traditions, the keeper of stories, and the person who made every celebration feel meaningful. Through her thoughtfulness, creativity, and unwavering devotion, she built connections that continue to bind generations together. She was born March 20th, 1938 in North Attleboro, and she grew up alongside her sister and brother, both of whom preceded her in death. In her later years, Beverly made her home at Laurelwood at the Pine Hills in Plymouth, where she formed deep friendships and became part of a warm and welcoming community. A memorial service celebrating Beverly's life will be held at Swift Memorial Methodist Church in Sagamore Beach, Massachusetts, on Thursday, July 16th at 10 a.m. A luncheon will follow at 11:30 a.m. at White Cliffs Country Club in Plymouth, Massachusetts. Family and friends are warmly invited to attend and share in remembering and celebrating her life. To celebrate Beverly's vibrant spirit, guests are welcome to wear cheerful colors in her memory. In lieu of flowers, Beverly's family invites you to honor her by making the world a little more beautiful. Plant a flower or a garden. Write a handwritten letter to someone you love. Welcome friends around your table. Share a family story or find a way to serve your community. She believed that small acts of kindness, thoughtfully given, could create lasting joy. And there are several death notices, many of which I've read as obituaries. Philip N. Desmarais died at age 63 in Provincetown. Arrangements are with the Nickerson Funeral Home in Wellfleet. Service time is July 8th at 11 a.m. at St. Peter the Apostle Church. The interment is private. Dawson L. Farber III, Nickerson Funeral Homes. Ronald A. Hanson Sr., Chapman Funeral and Cremations in Falmouth. Services are July 1st at 3 p.m. Frank Harrison, age 70, Sandwich, Mass. Passed on June 18th. Chapman Funeral and Cremations in Mashpee are the arrangements. The service time is July 7th at 10:30 a.m. at Christ the King Parish. Frederick LaSelva, 78, of Forestdale. Past June 24th. Services are July 14th at 11 a.m. at the Corpus Christi Parish in Sandwich. Nickerson-born Funeral Home has the arrangements. Robert Leahy died at the age of 90 in Sandwich. December 2nd, he passed. Millennium cremation services were held June 30th at Corpus Christi Parish. Beverly Ruth Weddergreen Nilt died at the age of 88 on June 19th. George F. Doherty and Sons Funeral Home in Wellesley. Services are July 16th at 10 a.m. at the Swift Memorial Methodist Church in Sagamore Beach. Todd Palmatier died at the age of 73 in Sandwich on June 21st. Arrangements are with the Bartlett Funeral Home. And Bonnie Snow died. No times are given. Arrangements are with the Nickerson Funeral Home. And with that, we've come to the end of our extensive obituaries and death notices listed in today's Cape Cod Times of June 29th, 2026. Well, we have literally read every single story except for sports, and we don't normally go into sports, but we will today because we still have 10 minutes left, and we will give you some of the information that we don't normally share. WNBA better not take Clark for granted from the sports page, and this is written by somebody who I can't read off this for some reason. Indiana Fever star Caitlin Clark is in the loneliest of places. Surrounded everywhere she goes by multiple WNBA defenders, thousands of fans, millions of voices, but forced to do it alone, or what must feel at times alone. What must Clark have felt June 24th after 2 dangerous plays in 1 minute by the Phoenix Mercury, later trudging off the Gamebridge Fieldhouse court and into the Fever locker room with a back injury, as the noise around her grew into confusing cacophony of support, fear, and outrage. Fans were furious with Phoenix Mercury star Alyssa Thomas, who reached for a loose ball near Clark and then landed on her with a knee to the midsection and a fist to the throat. Somehow, officials didn't see it. The WNBA must have seen it the next day when the league suspended Thomas for a game. Fans were furious with Mercury forward Valerian Ayayi, who contested a Clark three-pointer moments later and wound up in Clark's landing zone, one of her feet underneath one of Clark's. A brutal injury waiting to happen, a dangerous play in any league. Officials didn't deem it a flagrant foul, even after reviewing the replay. Somehow. What must Clark have felt walking to the locker room? Just another night at the office, maybe, for a player being asked to do the heaviest lifting in professional sports, the heaviest lifting by anyone, male or female, in decades. Since Tiger Woods turned pro on the PGA Tour in 1996, has any one athlete propped up a league as much as Clark has propped up the WNBA? Oh boy, is that a topic, a debate, an argument that's raged since the moment Clark left Iowa for the WNBA 2 years ago, and things started flowing in abundance, attention and money mainly, for a league that had been largely neglected, even ignored. Can we be honest or can't we? Probably not. No, honesty's been lacking in the WNBA culture war known as the Great Caitlin Clark debate. People who love her, who are obsessed with her, who create anonymous social media accounts with her name and picture, like that's not weirdo behavior, see Clark through the prism of something that goes beyond greatness or even inspiration, and lands somewhere closer to worship, as in hero worship. And up to a point, you understand. To those who love her, and to be clear, Clark is loved and supported in positive ways by positive people here in Indiana, not just by the trolls online. Clark is a vision of equality and excellence, a player the women's game has never seen before. She's not quite Steph Curry or Bob Cousy or Pete Maravich, no, but she's the closest the women's game has had to a player with such long-range shooting ability, playmaking flair, and showmanship. Like folks tend to do with anything this remarkable, in politics and business and entertainment as well, some have taken their appreciation of Clark into really strange waters. They've turned her into the most virtuous character in their make-believe world of us versus them. To these people, Clark does no wrong, the heroine when shots are falling, and a martyr when they're not. Everything good around her, she did it. Everything bad, someone did it to her. There are a lot of these people, and their grasp on reality is tenuous. They see themselves as propping up Clark, and up to a point, they're doing that if they're buying her number 22 Iowa or Fever jerseys, or eventually her Caitlin 1 Nike shoes. But the pressure they put on her, the vice grip of sheer hysteria they attach to every Clark-related factoid, good, bad, and in between, isn't helping anyone. It must be isolating for Clark to be inside that cauldron of chaos. There are a lot of people on the other side, too. People whose grasp on reality can be tenuous. People who don't want to give Clark credit for anything. Not for WNBA ratings and attendance having taken off since she joined the league in 2024. Not for the minimum WNBA salary having risen from $62,000 when she joined the league to $270,000 today. The average salary has risen from $113,000 to roughly $600,000 since she showed up. The cause and effect is right there for all to see, but some people take one kernel of truth. Clark didn't grow the WNBA by herself, and they turn it into this lie. Clark isn't so special. Of course she is. She's unique. The WNBA was rolling along for 27 years, making its way very slowly in this world until Clark arrived and attached a rocket booster to the game. To deny the timing, the connection, is intellectually dishonest. The WNBA, its players, its leadership, seems at times to be intellectually dishonest, which must be the loneliest feeling of them all for Clark. Is she the only reason for the rise of the WNBA? No. But she's the catalyst. The biggest reason more eyes than ever are on A'ja Wilson and Jackie Young and Breanna Stewart, on Angel Reese and Kahleah Copper and Kelsey Plum. Paige Bueckers is special too. So are Wilson and Reese and the other names above, and dozens of others, including Fever stars Kelsey Mitchell and Aliyah Boston. The more eyes on players like that, the better for everyone. More tickets sold in more markets, more eyeballs on more TV screens, even for games not involving the Indiana Fever. It's a cycle, and if handled correctly by everyone involved, it would be a beautiful cycle. Alas, it turns ugly when people who should know better refuse to admit that nobody else in the NBA, WNBA, individually has done for the league what Clark has done since 2024. Collectively, yes, the talent is remarkable, and the league itself is a worthy product, all of that. But until Clark showed up, where was the attendance, the average salary, the historic TV deals? That said, players seem to resent Clark. And you get that, right? They're too close. They're too competitive to anoint her. But when the league allows Clark to take the beating she takes routinely, and the beating she took June 24th in particular, egregious, Fever coach Stephanie White called it, you have to wonder what's going on. Why the league's golden goose, to use a literary allusion from childhood, isn't being protected more. Why she isn't being protected at all. We're being honest here, remember? So let's be honest and concede this point. Clark is difficult to officiate. She's her league's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander or Jalen Brunson, best player on the court most of the time, attacking the rim all the time. All eyes are on her. And then flailing her arms wildly or snapping her head back theatrically or falling to the floor as if she's been badly hurt. At times, Clark looks like a World Cup soccer player trying to draw a call. At times, it can be hard to take any of them, Gilgeous-Alexander, Brunson, Clark, best soccer players in the world, seriously. Does that mean Clark deserves Thomas's fist into her throat? Or Ayayi's dangerous closeout later in the game? Or for game officials to somehow miss what everyone saw in real time or replay? No. Clark doesn't deserve that. Or for truly dangerous fouls to be ignored. To make another illusion from our shared childhood, even the little boy who cried wolf did, that one time, see an actual wolf. The disconnect between who Clark is and how she's treated by her own team and league is wild. Who is she? Not the best player in her league, no, but one of the most influential female athletes in the world. Perhaps the most influential female athlete in the world. Perhaps ever. Given she plays a team sport and is not, like tennis superstar Serena Williams, an individual contractor. Does anyone appreciate Clark? Or will she have to leave for that to happen? And with that, we've come to the end of our reading of the Cape Cod Times for today, June 29th of 2026. This is your reader, Eric, saying be well, be safe, look after each other, and remember our veterans, especially those we've lost recently. Bye for now.